I'm Lester Holt. Howdy, Hold Eds. Kurt Money here, alongside my co-host,
Caitlin.
And we are here just to give you a little intro into our Patreon, the fun that we're having over on our Patreon. This is a full episode. This was our very first episode that we ever did, and it's non-Dateline. Caitlin, what do you remember about this baby?
I remember cockroaches.
A lot of cockroaches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, coming out of, like, his suit and his
sleeve
on his tie.
Like if you're thinking of Vincent D'Onofrio in Men in Black.
Yeah.
Right?
Is that how you see Alvin Ridley, Kate? Is Vintage?
Yeah, where the roaches come out of the sleeve. And what's the line that he says? The sugar water?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a weird line with sugar water. Well, you know I'm about to include it in this. Even though this is just an intro. We got clips and intros, yo.
Give me sugar and water.
And don't you worry about that. We got plenty of clips over on the Patreon. It's the same thing as this. It's just we talk about Dateline adjacent stuff like this one, Forensic Files. This is on a killer ep of Forensic Files, the tale of Alvin Ridley and whether or not he killed his wife. We are on episode 11 now, and we've done 2 FFs, 2 Forensic Files, but we also do like movies or TV shows. We did an X-Files for Christmas. And you can buy your own episode for the low price of $30. And you could pick what we cover. And we've done 2 of those as well. One on a Star Trek Voyager episode, which Kate friggin' loved. Mm-hmm. And then one on a Columbo, which you know Kurt Money loved a whole lot. And here's a little peek behind the curtain. Caitlin had to go, I don't think we need so many clips from the show. Remember that?
There were a lot of clips.
I can't help it, okay? Columbo rules. Hopefully we'll cover more of those. But we do some cool stuff on here like Lobster Boy. We did that Killer Carney show already.
Please let me go, Daddy.
Could you please let me go, Daddy? We did what Curious Case of. We did that. And what about our most recent one, Kate? We hopped over the pond. We're talking 30, 40-year-old British shows even.
Man, that was a trip.
Yeah, that's fun. And here's what I love about this episode specifically, is that in my usual looking for clips to use in the app, I just happened to pick an episode of a sitcom, a fictional television show that had Keith Morrison in it. Mm-hmm. And it was, it just felt so right. And so listen for that, because that's a lot of fun. What else? I'm going through it today because I got to bleep it. Here's the thing. Patreon, $2 a month, and you get 2 episodes a month. And other thing about it being Patreon is the swears are not bleeped. So you might hear an F-bomb or 2. But because this is on the main feed, I got to go through and add our Dateline guitar sting as the bleep. So I'm adding those babies right now.
But if that's not motivation enough to sign up, just to hear unfiltered K-Money and Caitlin.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to add about it, Kate?
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends. Wait. Did you re-listen to this episode, Caitlin?
No.
I sent you that link and everything. Didn't even listen to it. Okay.
Sorry.
All right, well, I'm surprised you remember the cockroaches. That's a boom. Okay, Kate, do you remember this, though? Ron Howard.
Yes, of course.
Of course. Never forget Ron Howard. The whole heads are going, what's Ron Howard got to do with anything? Well, listen to this friggin' app, and you'll know it. So enjoy this. Go to our Patreon. It's ILH, as in like the aisle of a video store. $2 a month, 2 episodes a month, and you can pick your own. But here, enjoy our very first one. Already in progress.
Diddly.
I'm Lester Holt.
Welcome to Aisle H, where true crime and comedy are on the same shelf.
Big DNA.
We'll still hop into it the same way, but this is exciting. Okay, actually, howdy, Holt heads. Oh no, the fact that I called it a new thing, I'm like, alongside my co-host.
Wait, but you're not Kurt Money?
Oh, I didn't say my name.
No.
That's the part I forgot. Howdy, Holt heads. Kurt Money here, alongside my co-host,
Caitlin,
and we are here, the very first Patreon-only episode. And boy, do we have a 22-minute banger on our hands to kick it off, because Caitlin has agreed to talk about an FF, a Forensic Files. Caitlin, first thoughts, what was it like getting your FF on?
It's like a warm hug of nostalgia.
Nice. Because you watched this in the original run, right? Didn't you used to watch this back in the day?
I did. I used to watch this back in the day with Jillionaire.
Okay.
This was probably before our Dateline days.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I remember these FFs from when I was like 7 or 8. This time I did not, but still enjoyed it.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear. I love it. I bet the FF that you're familiar with is the one on John List, because that was on America's Most Wanted, and where they made the head... It's like the most famous, let's build a head sculpture out of memories, right? Like the Family Annihilator guy.
Yeah.
That's like one of their most famous apps. Do you think people like that still have work? You know, the ones that were making 3D head sculptures of people?
No, absolutely not. Because now the computer does it.
Yeah, FF is so guilty. Well, FF's not guilty. The shows that they cover are guilty because of technology constraints at the time. I think I talked about before where, like, they'll send pictures to NASA so that they could basically lay them on top of each other in a computer program. I mean, because look, it was like 97 or whatever. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's funny to laugh at now, and it cost them $30,000 to do it.
Wild.
Yeah, it was just to overlay an image. It was crazy. Okay, but we're not talking about that episode. We are talking about the Season 5, Episode 9, entitled Calligraphy, about the plight of Alvin Ridley and his deceased wife, Virginia.
But this is called...
I mean, this is loosey-goosey.
This is called Killigraphy. Like kill.
Yes. Yeah, there's some hello wordplay in that title.
Uh-huh.
That's a good call. I should throw up the little quotes on the kill part. Now, that would be a good title if the person in this episode had killed someone, I think.
Right.
The title's a little bit of a misstep because it doesn't really fit, because there wasn't a murder in this case.
Yes. And the handwriting having to do with calligraphy, also not really that big of a deal in this case. They tried to make it a huge deal.
Wow.
They had like a handwriting expert match it like it was some big mystery, when it was just like, well, yeah, obviously she wrote them.
Yeah.
Who else would have written them?
Yeah, not Alvin. Something tells me Alvin's handwriting was not as nice.
No.
Okay, well, let's dive in. I'm going to start from the top. But also, I have more on that handwriting expert. And the handwriting did matter in the trial. But, because this is a classic, I read that book.
I read that book!
No, you didn't!
I read the book!
So, this episode... I'm very excited to hear all of the other things that you know about it, because this episode is very short, very simple, not a lot to it.
Yeah.
What they did show was hilarious, but
yeah.
If there's all this other stuff to know, I'm curious what it could possibly be.
Yeah, I am of the strong belief that this could be a My Cousin Vinny style movie. And the book has it all laid out. I mean, if I had more faith in the business, I suppose, if I wasn't so jaded, I'd want to make this like a story I'd fight to get on the air, because this could be a feel-good Oscar movie, right? Like, put yourself in, like Anthony Hopkins playing Alvin Ridley or something back in the day, putting on a low voice and everything. I don't know, could have been cool. But anyway, okay, so this story begins in Ringgold, Georgia, in October 4th, 1997, when town recluse and /weirdo and /former TV repairman Alvin Ridley places a call to the police. And what goes down on this 911 call, Kate? Because we heard it.
Yeah.
They had the tapes.
He tells the 911 operator that his wife is dead. And they're like, are you sure? You sure she's not breathing? And he's like, yeah, listen, I'm not at home.
Yep.
I'm at a payphone like 10 miles away. And they're like, why is that, sir?
Yeah.
And he says that he doesn't have a phone.
Yeah.
134 Inman Street.
Yeah.
Is she breathing?
I'm calling from a payphone booth.
You don't have a phone at your house?
There's no phone there.
There's no phone there.
And then we learn that this wasn't even the nearest phone he could possibly get to. This is just the quickest phone that he, I guess, trusted. It's a payphone. He drove past the fire department, which could have helped him.
Did you know that?
He then called...
Wait, did you know that you can go to the fire department for help like that?
You can go to the fire department for anything.
Well, I found this out because our boy McClizu says people come in all the time with stomach aches, and he's like, I can't help you.
Oh, well, when I said anything, I didn't mean that. That's really stupid. But yeah, I mean, if you need an ambulance, they're going to send fire also. So it's like you can go to the fire station and they'll route the ambulance. They'll help. They'll at the very least, they will get 911 on the horn for you. So
okay, so why didn't Alvin do that?
He didn't do that because, as you mentioned, he's like the town weirdo, and he had beef with the fire department. He had beef with Everybody in town.
He had had a prior run-in with the people there and didn't trust them.
And he was like, no, I can't go to them.
Yeah.
Even though, regardless of their beef, I'm sure they would have helped. It's literally their job. And also, who beefs with the fire department? I can understand the police, but, like, no one hates the fire department.
Yeah, Alvin Ridley does, and he hates the cement company in town. He hates the police, too. Don't you worry about that, because everybody's out to get him.
Right.
Alvin is a paranoid guy. And look, I'm here to say that this guy lives in a small town. Hey, how many traffic lights they got in this town, Kate? They even said it in the FF.
Oh, wow.
3.
That is small town.
That's some small town shit.
Life is simple here.
Are we doing lists on this? I feel like we should still do lists. Our list.
Let's still do it. Yeah, so he gets to the payphone, and first he calls a hospital that's in Chattanooga.
30 miles away.
A different state. And he calls them because that's the hospital he trusts. But they're like, sir, you need to call the local police to get an ambulance. And then he's like, all right, fine. And then he calls the police.
And we find out.
And they're so confused that why he doesn't have a phone at his house. Because this isn't like, the 40s. This is the 90s.
Right. Yeah, it's 97. This guy doesn't have a phone in the house. Now, they were shocked about a number of things, one of which being that Alvin Ridley was married and had a wife in his house. A lot of the town was shocked to find out he lived with somebody.
No one had seen Alvin's wife, Virginia, not even her family, in the 30 years she was married to Alvin.
I mean, this was a big surprise to a lot of people. So they've got that mentality going in when they went to the quote-unquote crime scene, the Ridley pad, and found his wife deceased in bed. Rigor mortis had already set in. She's stiff and whatnot.
In a house with no phone, no running water, and infested with ants and cockroaches.
And already people are suspicious. Now you, Kate, you went into this with a fresh mind. I'd already been talking about how I love Alvin Ridley and stuff, so maybe you had a little bit of bias. Were you suspicious of Alvin at this point? Where's your head at?
I wasn't suspicious at all because they were interviewing him. And
great point.
Also, to me, what he said made sense. He told them that he woke up and rolled over and she was dead, had passed away sometime in the night.
Yeah.
There was no blood anywhere. There was no kind of indication that there was any sort of fight.
Right.
It didn't seem odd to me at all.
Cool. That's good to hear. Now, everybody who went in there, they get the body out of there and the coroner takes a look. Not the forensic pathologist, the first step, the coroner looks, and everybody's super suspicious right off the bat. They're going, so much so that the coroner puts homicide on the death certificate, right? I mean, they suspect murder because they didn't know Alvin had a wife or forgot that he did. And now they're saying that there are potential ligature marks on her neck, like she'd been strangled or something.
Right.
Everybody thought he killed his wife back in the 60s or the early 70s.
Let's talk about the players in the FF, because they talked to a few people involved with the case, including the lawyer who's got, you know how much I love names, Kate. What'd you think of his first name? McCracken. That's pretty good.
McCracken.
That's good stuff, right?
I don't know that
That's a wild name.
I don't know that I've ever heard a first name like that. You hear first names that sound like last names all the time.
Yeah.
But not McCracken.
No. And I'll say this, the FF put in quotes Ken, as if that's what he's called. But I will say, he was called Ken growing up. His name is McCracken Poston Jr. It's not like he hides that first name. So that's wild. And I love it, personally. There's a K in there. You know how I feel about them.
And he's a junior.
Yep. Yeah. You're right.
So someone else had that name, too.
That's right. So we interview him. Now, the guy who read the book, because I didn't read it, I listened to it, okay? It was on Audible, but I'm glad I did, because the guy reading it had a real, snarky tune to him a little bit that I was kind of wishing was this author, because he's kind of soft-spoken in this ep. What do you think? What do you think of McCracken?
So you said you had a lot of things to say about the characters in this, and to me,
yeah.
none of them really stood out to me aside from...
Say it.
What's her name?
Trixie's ass.
Trixie.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I can't wait to hear what's so bad about Trixie.
To me, I'm watching Trixie talk. Every single sentence she says is doused in hatred for Alvin Ridley. Did that not come across to you? Or I felt everything she said was, and if there's a God above, and I believe there is, well, I wouldn't want to be him. I wouldn't want to be Alvin when he met the devil or whatever she's insinuating. Like, did that not come across to you?
I guess so. But I chalked that more up to the fact that everyone in town had a bad interaction with him. Not so much that it was like he killed his wife.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Trixie testified against Alvin, but she was a gift to the defense because it's funny we talk about that Carney, what's up?
We haven't even said who Trixie is.
That we should probably say that. Okay, so Trixie is Patricia LaCroix, sister of the deceased Virginia Ridley. That's who she is. And according to her, they had made numerous efforts because Alvin and Virginia got married when she was 18. And then after that, they never saw her again. And they'd try and call. And Trixie made it damn clear that every chance that she had to send an invite to their house, she did it. And it was never replied to, right?
For 30-something years.
Yeah, because they were married in, I think, 71 or 68 or something like that. And yeah, I mean, that was the last anybody saw of her.
I sent them an invitation to every wedding, every death, every birthing. To no avail. Nothing was ever acknowledged. Nothing.
So that's where a lot of this suspicion is coming from. Because not only are people claiming that Alvin killed her, they're claiming that he held her captive for 30 years.
Right.
Dude, have you ever heard of Joseph Fritzl? Oh, just saying captive for...
Yes.
Yeah. Really? We got to find an ep about him and talk about him because I just listened to a pod about him. That's scary and terrifying. 24 years living underground and stuff.
I could do a whole podcast on Fritzl.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm an expert on the Fritzl case whenever you want to do it.
That is so funny. Okay, well, right on.
That's who inspired my sex dungeon.
The sex dungeon currently in the cake cave? Or
yeah.
Or what? Okay, sweet.
This is wrong.
So Trixie, she's out to get Alvin because she thinks that he's kept her sister captive for all these years, and now that he killed her. And she is so positive of that. I mean, here's my favorite quote from the sis in the Forensic Files, which again is only 22 minutes, so there's a lot going on that we got to get across. But what made it from her is, I believe that Alvin Ridley killed my sister, and you cannot convince me of anything else.
There's no doubt in my mind that this man was responsible, directly or indirectly, for my sister's death. You cannot convince me of anything else.
Boy, I mean, that's pretty damning, huh? You cannot convince me. Even if you present the truth to me, I'm not going to believe it. My name's Trixie LaCroix, and I'm out of here. What do you think?
It seems strange that he would wait 30-something years to kill his wife.
Yeah. That's a good point. So luckily, Alvin's arrested. They're firing up this murder trial. This is where McCracken steps in, and he takes the case, but I gotta say, Alvin actively did not want him to take the case. Like, McCracken forced himself on Alvin, because Alvin's an ornery little shit. Like, he didn't want to give up anything from his house for evidence. So much so that McCracken had to pay him $200, like he had to barter with him to talk to the guy. And the only way that he could get Alvin to respond to anything is, one time he was so mad at Alvin for a lot of reasons. Guy stunk, right? He didn't want to talk about anything but 15-year-old court cases about a bumper accident, like what are those called? Like a fender bender, right? Like this court case he's talking about how his dad got backed into by the cement truck in '84. That's the reason why he's secluded from everybody and paranoid of everybody. Like they mentioned it a little bit in the episode. They show the van even. That van has sat in his yard since '84 when the county returned it to him. He's never touched it once because he thought that would like reset it and like it was him accepting it as payback or whatever. Like he's physically never touched that van that sits in his yard.
He lost that case. He tried to they countersued him and he lost.
Yeah.
And they showed him going to court with like a neck brace on or something.
That was footage from his murder trial. That was a little misleading from FF because that was McCracken next to him.
Yeah, they made it seem like that was him
in '84
after this car accident, but
yeah.
You mentioned he stunk. It should be noted that his house did not have running water.
No, it did not. No phone line, no running water. They had a wooden gate that was pretty successful at keeping people out. But, I mean, we see a walkthrough. Alvin Ridley gives us a tour of his pad, and it comes as described. It's a real dump.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how they lived in there together for 30-something years.
Yeah. Wait. Oh. So Alvin never wanted... First of all, McCracken couldn't get in his house of his client. Like, for 10 months or whatever, Alvin would never let him inside. And then on one Thanksgiving, he was having dinner with his dad and his mom, or his family Thanksgiving, and they said, Ken, we want you to take a Thanksgiving plate over to Alvin. And so he hand-delivered this plate, and Alvin says, hey, come on in. And that got him inside the house for the very first time.
Wow.
Like 10 months in. That's pretty wild, huh?
Yeah.
And so right now the case is not looking good. Also, there's a lot of articles being written about how he had like held his wife captive and murdered her. Everybody's against her. So already they're worried about like what kind of jury are we going to be able to get in this case? Because they're all already pretty convinced otherwise. Oh, also, even after the jury was selected, the guy was saying how jurors still read the paper. Like they're told not to, but they still do. Mm-hmm. And that one of the jurors was a journalist for the paper.
The local paper.
Yeah. That doesn't seem... That should get them just, like, not included, don't you think?
Absolutely. When the whole town knows who you are and hates you, it should be moved to a different county.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Which I think Alvin wanted. And then... Okay, just gotta start peppering stuff. I guess I'm already doing it. But that neck brace that you saw in that footage, that was a new one because he forgot to wear it. But McCracken and his team were pumped that he forgot it because it smelled so friggin' bad. So they had to go buy him a new one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And also... Okay, so luckily Alvin lets in his lawyer to his house 10 months into the thing. And thankfully he did... Because what does he discover when he walks in the house, besides a dilapidated dump with no running water or phones?
He sees handwritten letters all over the walls. And they're letters written by his wife.
Yeah.
And it basically chronicles their lives together. They go way back to right when they were married. And something I thought was interesting, the voiceover at one point said that these letters contained details right up until when she died. But then the letter they showed was from 1971.
Yeah.
And she died in 97. And I was like, okay, well, that's a weird letter to show. So that was like 10 seconds in. That's when I texted you and I was like 10 seconds in and I already have thoughts. It's like, that's a weird letter to focus on where it says 1971. So then I was like, wait, was she like mummified for 30 years? Did she die in the 70s and was found in 97? And then it was like, oh no, she had only been dead 8 hours. Okay.
But that's hilarious. I didn't notice that's the one because they showed the poem that she had written about Remember Me at All or whatever. But I know the document from 97 that they're referring to. And guess what it said in this letter was, there was like the Orkin man. Who's an Orkin? Is that like to spray for bugs? Is it a bug guy?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So an Orkin man would let himself in the house when Virginia was like bathing or napping and stuff and asked her to go riding with him. So this is just one of many things that is going to keep her inside, and why she's afraid of people is because she's already got some weird Orkin man coming in trying to watch her bathe, supposedly. Okay.
I'm guessing this was very early on.
Yeah, because I think that's why, well, we don't need to get into all that, but I guess...
Because she couldn't bathe towards the end. They didn't have water.
Great point there. That's an excellent point. I think I'm mistaken on what the 97 letter was. That's my B. But so McCracken goes into the Alvin pad and sees all these handwritten notes, and he starts gathering up. Well, he can't gather them because Alvin will not let him touch them. And he's like, Alvin, this could save your life. You've got to let me submit this as evidence. I mean, it's this woman that's supposedly held captive for 30 years proclaiming her love for you through the decades.
Right.
And I grabbed a piece off the wall and, said, Alvin, this will save you. I've got to have all of this.
And he's like, no, this is all I have left of her. You can't have it. And so this is...
It's not to have it forever.
Yeah. He doesn't believe he'd ever get it back.
He got his van back.
Hey, good point. When they are asking Alvin about that van case, he's just as fired up as he was the day it happened, I feel.
July 1984, they seized my van without due process of law, without a fair hearing.
I feel like that's the biggest problem he has with the world still. Even though he beat a murder rap, he's probably more upset about the van still.
This is mental illness.
Yeah. Yep. And actually, I got a little epilogue on that point for the end, which is very interesting. Okay. So McCracken barters and says, okay, what if I pay you $100 to make copies of these? And Alvin said, I'll think about it. Then he tells him, okay, pay me $200, but you got to give them back after you copy them right away. And so, like, this is one of many deals the lawyer is making just to help Alvin with his case. Okay?
Jesus.
Again, it's a good thing, because this is where all the calligraphy stuff comes into play. Killigraphy, because in these writings is the proof, potentially, that, well, one, she's not held against her will, because it's everyday stuff like January 2nd, 1986, watched Elvis Presley. That was like in one of the images of the notes. And here's a book detail. They loved the show Unsolved Mysteries, okay?
No way.
They fucking loved it. So much so that Virginia, the deceased, at one point in the 80s, they had written like a spec script of Unsolved Mysteries. Guess what the topic was, Kate?
Was it the van?
Yeah, it was the van case.
I love that.
Oh, I love it so much.
That's crazy.
That they wrote a fucking script. They wrote a script for it, too, which is an extra level of crazy. We've written spec scripts. Like, there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I would love to get my hands on what their script was.
But you don't really write spec scripts for nonfiction.
No, you don't. You don't. That's true. And earlier when I said I had to call an 1-800 numbers, because in her notes was the 1-800 number for Unsolved Mysteries to pitch stories. So they were asking for stories. I mean, there is that. But I tried to call the number, and it was a scam. So it has long been dead, but it was a terrible thing that the beekeeper needs to get on. That's a Jay Stath reference for you.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
I protect the hive.
Because it's like trying to trick people into having your credit card handy so you can get $100 if you pay $1. Anyway, point is, they wrote a spec script for Unsolved Mysteries, and also Virginia had... She had a little crush on a Hollywood actor.
Do you want
to guess who it would be? She was obsessed with this guy.
All right, I love this. You gotta give me a hint.
Okay, it might give it away.
Okay.
He started as a child actor
and
went on to bigger and better things, and right now it sounds like it would be Kurt Russell. It's not Kurt Russell. It's a guy who grew up and did other stuff other than just act in awesome movies that we know and love.
Ron Howard?
Nailed it.
Oh, wow.
Ron Howard. Isn't that awesome?
It'd be funny if it was Clint Howard.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, I didn't do nothing.
She was like, there's one passage that says Ron Howard and his wife Cheryl, and McCracken was talking about how he left out parts because it was too much. Like, she was too obsessed with Ron Howard. There was stuff he didn't admit because he was like, I don't want to have to get into this.
Tell you a secret, everyone feels that way.
So Trixie is convinced that her sister was basically secluded in this cabin and taken away from her and their family and everyone else and hidden from the world.
Thought crossed my mind, maybe she was being kept captive.
But it sounds like her sister was just as crazy as her husband.
Yes.
And that they were perfect for each other.
Absolutely.
Because she adored him. She clearly adored Ron Howard. She didn't want to leave the house.
No.
And when they found her body, they said that her hair hadn't been brushed in a very long time.
Yeah.
That's her choice. Like, she's the one who's going to be brushing her hair. It wasn't his job to brush her hair.
No, not at all. And that was perhaps the biggest laugh in the app, because that was presented as, this is Trixie's moment to shine. She goes, they asked me. She had a lot of pauses in Trixie, too, like for dramatic effect. But she goes, they asked me to identify the body, and I couldn't do it. And so my sister went in, Linda was also running her mouth in the trial about how Alvin had killed her and all this stuff. Anyway, but she was never at the trial, that was pointed out, which was interesting. So maybe she didn't really care. Anyway, before I got sidetracked, Linda goes in there to identify the body. She comes out of the morgue and says, I am so glad you didn't go in there and look. Her hair has not been combed in years. That's why she didn't want her to identify the body, because of the hair was messed up. That part was crazy. Did you hear that? You remember that part?
It's crazy.
We had a Dateline recently where the mom went in to look at the body a week after it happened, because she was a nurse and wanted to see like the damage done to her son's body. And this family is like, I'm just glad you didn't go in there. Her hair was a mess.
Yeah, because there's no other damage, because she wasn't murdered.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you didn't go in. It was not a pretty sight. She said her hair has not been combed in years. It has so many knots in it.
So while McCracken is out there looking for experts to testify and like looking for the guy, the handwriting expert, he talks to one guy, Wanamaker, who was also interviewed in the episode. That was cool to see him too. He was the guy with the bow tie and the glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when McCracken finds out, one of the experts finds out about how there's 20,000 pages of written material that's used on the wall, but also to like line the cages of stuff. Like it's, and he says, oh yeah, that's hypergraphia. So Virginia very clearly had hypergraphia, which is like the urge to write every detail down about your life, about your thoughts, and then like share them with people. And just mundane, minute little stuff. And that's textbook what was on these pages.
In notebooks, entire chapters of the Bible had been transcribed repeatedly, but most were love letters to Alvin.
That's good news. So now all we got to do is prove that Virginia wrote those, because that's pretty good proof that she wasn't held captive, because it's all about how much she loves her husband and how they got this great idea for a killer Unsolved Mysteries episode. Starring
Ron Howard.
Yeah. So they do get an expert in there, and we talked to the expert on the FF. Now, do you remember what was the giveaway for him that it was Virginia the whole time?
I think it was the way she drew her eyes.
Yeah, like her lowercase eyes ended above all other lowercase letters. That's interesting, right?
Yeah, that didn't really stand out to me when I was looking at her signature. It just kind of looked very loopy-doopy.
Yeah, yeah.
Because obviously it was cursive, because that's back when people wrote in cursive.
Of course.
And I had to really look at it to be like, oh yeah, I guess the eyes are coming up a little high. I mean, that seems negligible, but...
You can clearly see that this eye feature is a habitual writing movement of this particular writer.
Again, I thought it was ridiculous they even had to do this. Just, who else would have written them?
Yeah.
He wouldn't have.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Just test his writing.
Yeah.
Does it match it? No.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because there's decades of writing too, so it's not like you like faked it the day before the trial or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I will admit that I did not notice that eye thing until he pointed it out. Now, I've been critical of handwriting experts in the past, and I guess I still am in theory, because I don't think it's a science. But that's a good point that he made. But it didn't matter. Guess what got all of that writing admitted as evidence in the trial? Guess who was responsible for that?
Trixie
on the stand is confirming that that's her sister's handwriting. I mean, that's all we need. Forget an expert. Her sister is saying that's her writing.
Mm-hmm.
And the sister, Trixie, they had her read out loud the pitch for the Unsolved Mysteries episode. Okay. And Trixie says, "If I may, please." And of course, McCracken's going to let her roll because she's a nutso. And she's going, I think maybe this is a sign. This could be like a secret hidden message from Virginia. It's a cry for help that she's being held captive.
Oh, boy.
And McCracken's going, okay, continue. Keep talking about your sister's handwriting, please. Yes, tell us more. Tell us more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does that not take away all credibility or what? If I could read into this, please. I think she's being held captive. I don't know.
No one asked you, Trixie.
Oh, that's good stuff. And so now we've got that on our side. And I gotta say, at the beginning of the trial, the jurors would not even look. They wouldn't look at Alvin, but they wouldn't look at McCracken either. Like, the tide is starting to turn now because we're presenting all this stuff that's like clearly, like, these were just two weirdos in love. Like, why can't you just look?
Two weirdos.
Even Trixie says, I do believe that if Alvin had called earlier, my sister would still be alive. Wrong. She had been dead for over 8 hours. So that means when he woke up, she could have been dead for 6.5, but she was still dead.
Right. She was still dead. She died sometime in her sleep, and we learn why.
Virginia's family told investigators that Virginia suffered from epilepsy as a child.
So she had seizures a lot that Alvin and her would have to deal with, and Alvin called them spells, I will say. Every time, spells.
Spells.
Yeah.
And she stopped taking her medication a long time ago, and when you stop taking it, you have pretty severe seizures that can lead to death.
Yeah. And that was another problem with the sisters running her mouth on the episode about how in the last, we looked 50, 100 miles radius for anything, any sign of her going to a doctor. Well, I got news. It all stopped in 1977 because Jesus told her to stop taking her meds. That's specifically what happened. And they even show the 77 pharmaceutical receipt.
Right.
So it's like, what are you talking about? Like, again, this is just more proof. Virginia was a hermit. Like, this was just living her life.
Yeah.
That's all that was going on.
It was a weird life, but she was living it.
That's what, yeah. And when she would have her spells, Alvin would like hold her so she wouldn't bite her tongue and stuff. And I thought maybe that was the explanation for what they called abrasions on the neck, right?
Right.
These abrasions on the neck, they get an expert in there, Dr. Goldberg. The guy with the comb over and the big frames and the beard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Alvin, he was Alvin's favorite. Alvin only called him Goldberg. That's it. He said, when's Goldberg coming? Now, I love that guy was on this episode because he caused a lot of problems for the defense because it turns out he's an expert in 285 things. Okay? So he was brought on as an expert for whatever he was talking about, but he was with McCracken when McCracken went to go talk to Carney, the guy with the handwriting expert.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that Goldberg was in there asking him a lot of questions. Like, he was asking more questions than he was. And then in the car, Goldberg says, hey, if you want, I can be your handwriting expert. And at that point, McCracken's like, oh no, like, what did I get into here?
Oh, jeez.
I love that he was on the show and he points out that what was that mark on the neck from? Why was there an abrasion or ligature mark or whatever? What was it really?
Well, we learned that the coroner, because it was such a small town, didn't have a lot of experience with dead bodies. Her actual job. She didn't know how to do it that well. And when she was doing the autopsy, she took blood from the neck with a needle.
For a toxicology report.
Right. And then didn't do the actual exam until the following day or sometime later. And when she started to do the exam, a bruise had formed where the needle went in. And she thought, oh, that's a ligature mark.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy because when she was taking the blood earlier, she would have noted that there's a mark there right where I'm putting my needle. And she didn't, which means she caused it.
Yeah.
And
the FF calls her out on it too.
Yeah, an expert says anyone doing an autopsy or preparing a body knows that you don't do that. It's not even a rookie mistake. That's like a crazy mistake. And it was just her lack of experience.
Yeah, he called it an artifact. Any changes in a body caused by post-mortem damage, which I thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like, there should be a level of competence here that was not active in the morgue that evening.
This is highly irregular and is something that procedurally is an error.
So now we've got answers for the writing. We've got answers for why she was embarrassed of her epilepsy, and that's why she didn't see her family either. Okay, so the jury deliberates. They've put on a pretty good case, although, like I said, Goldberg was torn apart by the defense for being an expert in too many things. And guess what came up a lot in his records? He's a member of the Vidocq Society. Remember them?
Oh, yeah. Of course he is.
Yeah, doesn't that seem great? The McCracken was like, I don't know what this thing is. But we heard about that on a Dateline last year.
We did. It's citizens doing what they can to help solve crimes, and that seems right up his alley.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Also, he's just trying to help.
Yeah.
He wants to be an expert in as many things as he can be because he wants to help as many people as he can.
That's true. It kind of reminded me of our guy in that bad suit when he was like, I'm a paint drying expert because he had researched it. Remember that poor guy that you and J-Make were roasting?
I remember that guy. That suit was insane.
That guy needs to spend every penny of the expert witness money that he's getting on a better suit because that one has seen better days.
The jury deliberates for 2 hours or something. And what's the verdict? What's the verdict, Caitlin?
Not guilty.
Not guilty. This is a success.
After 2 hours of deliberation, the jury acquitted Alvin Ridley of all charges.
This was awesome, and I loved seeing the footage of Alvin just literally standing in front of the courthouse, and McCracken is like, go ahead, Alvin, like, say something. He's just standing there, right? Because he's kind of weird.
He doesn't have anything to say. Another thing I thought was interesting was when Trixie said that Virginia, when they found her, she couldn't have weighed more than like 85 pounds, as if he had starved her for years.
Right.
But then they show a picture from their wedding day,
and
she was already 85 pounds.
Yeah.
She's the tiniest person I've ever seen.
She's very, very tiny.
Very tiny.
That's a good point.
So she's been skinny the whole time.
Yeah. Okay, so now is when I'm going to give you just some more fun deets from the book, okay?
Let's hear it.
For one, the FF mentioned it. They call it a petechial hemorrhage, but it's just petechiae is like blood vessels that burst in your eyes that one would think happens when you're strangled or something, but it's also a side effect of epileptic seizures.
Mm-hmm.
And while McCracken is on this case, September 21st, 1998, Flojo dies. Do you remember Flojo?
Of course.
Florence Joyner Kersey,
very fast.
Florence Griffith Joyner was her name. She went by Flojo, and she had like crazy nails and like great style and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what's funny is the only runner I can name from back then is Jackie Joyner Kersey. They both have Joyner in their name because Flojo married Jackie's brother. Isn't that kind of crazy?
A family of athletes.
Yeah. Anyway, so she died of an epileptic seizure, and she had a condition that she had been treating herself. That's why she didn't compete in the 96 Atlanta Olympics. So now there's this super famous person who died with petechiae, just like Virginia, the least known person in the world. So McCracken calls up Flojo's doctor and like gets the autopsy report because it's like a better version of what Virginia didn't get. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because obviously all the right doctors did the right stuff with her. So this was like a great proof of this is a documented thing. Petechiae can happen when you have epileptic seizures. Done and done.
Mm-hmm.
So that the timing of that was pretty wild. And I had forgotten all about Flojo, and I'm glad that I remembered her. Yeah?
Yeah.
Her nails were really long, too. I looked it up. The nails were wild. Okay. Alvin is a literal mofo, okay? You cannot mean anything else like sarcasm or whatever. And here's a good example. Alvin's running his mouth talking about how it was a legal seizure of the van or whatever, right? His usual nonsense. And McCracken said, "Oh, Lord," like as in like exasperated, like, "Oh, Lord." And he looked over at Alvin. He was silent with his head bowed. He thought that his lawyer was praying. And so Alvin put his head down and was praying too. So that's how at first he would communicate with Alvin of stuff he needed him to know, was to put it in a prayer.
Wow. McCracken went above and beyond for this client.
Yeah. And when they mentioned the cockroaches in the house.
And infested with ants and cockroaches.
I can't believe they didn't talk about the fact that those cockroaches came with Alvin every day to court. Every day there were escaping cockroaches from the case files and from McCracken's briefcase. Yeah. Every single day.
Oh my God. Were they just like running down Alvin's pant leg or something?
They'd come out of like whatever he had, or like literally in the case files, anytime he would open his briefcase or whatever, in there is stuff from Alvin's house, and there'd just be cockroaches everywhere. Oh. So much so that one time one was on his tie and he freaked out and knocked it down and like squatted it or smashed it right there during the trial, and people are like laughing at him. But like, that's pretty wild, huh? Like coming with cockroaches all day. And then
he must have smelled so bad.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so bad. And so bad that he said, like in the beginning, McCracken got pissed off and was like, "Look, I know the truck stop has showers and I know that there's a laundromat. You have to clean yourself," because he said, "Hard to sit next to you and breathe, buddy," which he immediately regretted. It's kind of mean. But Alvin didn't shower, and next day he showed up in the same clothes.
Of course.
And
of course.
The prosecution was trying to say, like, he needed quarters to make this call. So if he woke up in a panic, how did he have change enough for multiple calls? And McCracken is like, well, the proof is in the courtroom because you can hear Alvin walking everywhere because he has a pocket full of change. Always.
Always.
And he clearly sleeps in his clothes.
Yeah. This man does not have credit cards.
No. So, like, that was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
McCracken grew up in town there, and actually Alvin, who was known as the Zenith Man because he owned a TV repair shop in town, and that's what he went out of business because everybody didn't trust him anymore after the case of his dad getting backed into by the cemetery.
Yeah, I bet.
So
no one's going to want to do business with him if they're worried that he's going to sue them for some reason.
That's a good point. And he also blames the death of his father, who had a heart attack years later, was caused by the stress of that court case.
Sure.
Of course. Yeah. Okay, more tidbits. So one time he had gone over to fix McCracken's TV when he was a kid because they had broken the dial on it. And he remembers that he fixed the dial and then gave him a stern talking to on the proper way to turn dials on televisions, which is kind of funny. And then he saw that McCracken was a wrestling fan, and he told him that he had met Andre the Giant, which he didn't confirm or deny later. But anyway, just a fun little tidbit about Alvin. And also, McCracken was a failed, he wanted to be a congressman and all this stuff. In all the crap in Alvin's house, he found flyers from both of his failed campaigns. When he tried to get something in 88 and 96, Alvin and Virginia supported him and had like pamphlets that he had handed out back then. That's kind of cool.
Wow. And he was still distrusting of him for 10 months of the case.
Yeah, exactly. And McCracken's going, "Alvin, why do you have this stuff?" And he says, "Well, because Virginia and I were with you." And he goes, but neither of you voted. I know that for a fact. So what are you talking about? Like, neither of you ever voted. And he goes, well, we were with you in spirit and, telling other people to vote for you.
Sure.
Sure, Alvin.
It's probably why he didn't win.
Yeah. Oh, also, Alvin's response to the bullshit with the trial in the 80s was to run for sheriff so he could fix this town. Now, naturally, he lost. Mm-hmm. And he only got 251 votes. In this article that disparaged Alvin, called him a murderer and all this stuff, Alvin's biggest concern is that the journalist had said that he only had 251 votes. He was like, I had more votes than that. More people told me they voted for me than that. Like, that was his biggest problem with it. But he had a genius move. He's in the front of the courthouse. This is like in 86 or something. And the crowd hates him because they know he's the town kook. So what he does is he had taped the national anthem off TV the night before. Because you know how they did that back in the day? Mm-hmm. Like when TV was over at night, they'd play the national anthem.
Yep.
So he played the national anthem and everybody got quiet and went along with it. He silenced his hecklers by playing the national anthem. I thought this was pretty smooth, right? That's a good move.
It's something.
Future Kurt here with a message for Caitlin. I think I'm on to you. When you say it's something, you usually mean you don't think it's anything at all. All right? So the Kurts are wise now. Okay? Also, they're about to get to the part in the show where they talk about their lists. Kurt's got a list. Caitlin's got a list. I mean, they don't give you any background to these lists at all, and this is episode 1 of the Patreon, so that's why Future Kurt's here right now. The lists are things that happen a lot in a Dateline. That's the origin of the lists. Like the killers from Florida. That's on Kate's. Or when cops say someone passed a lie detector test, and they say with flying colors. That's on there. Also, when they fail the test, and then they say, well, he got his name right. That happens a lot too. Anyway, so that's what our lists are, and, well, I got you. I gotta let you know. Earlier, when I threw in that clip of Clint Howard...
Hey, I didn't do nothing!
That's from that episode of Seinfeld where they think that Kramer's the killer, so they're out there trying to get him back. And wouldn't you know it, at the end of that very clip was our boy, Keith Morrison.
He is described as 5'5", bald, and reputedly a very generous tipper.
Anyway, that's some awesome stuff. It feels good to be in the first ILH episode. KM just popped in. We didn't know what was going to happen, but it did. All right, back to you, current Kurt. Caitlin, I'm on to you. Okay, bye. Okay.
I thought it was funny at the end when they were like, what's he up to now? And they said that he hopes to maybe open his TV repair business again. And I'm thinking, he has no idea how to fix modern TVs. He doesn't even have running water.
But so this episode aired in 2000, and the trial was over, I think, in early January of 99. So there were still tube TVs out then, but
there were.
It wasn't going to take off, my man. I mean, dude, it's so crazy. They have footage in the episode of him in his old store. Like, the sign's still there. They have him walking around the inside with all these old ass TVs, like, built into furniture like it used to
Anything with a dial, even in 98, 99, was not in heavy rotation.
No.
Did he know how to, like, even if it was a tube TV, we had a tube TV until, like, 2006, but
yeah.
I don't think that's the technology he knew how to work on. Like, I don't think he knew how to mess with cable.
Yeah.
He's like a old school antenna dial TV kind of guy.
And I got bad news. I mean, the timing of this is pretty wild, but old Alvin Ridley passed away like 3 months ago.
3 months ago?
Dude was alive. And I know this because, of course, I follow the FF on Reddit, and McCracken was posting on there. Last name posting. Didn't mean it, but that's good stuff, Kurt. He's on there posting and saying like, thanks for all the love for the episode, so-and-so. But he wrote this book I read, The Zenith Man, this year. It came out this year. And, the epilogue. Turns out Alvin has autism. He's on the spectrum. Surprise, surprise.
That makes sense.
But in 98, 99, they didn't know there was a spectrum, for one.
And when they got married in the late 60s, early 70s, they certainly didn't know. They just thought like, well, Virginia's just marrying this weird guy.
Yeah.
But she was probably on the spectrum too.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot also, when Alvin was younger, he was known for driving around a red convertible with a blonde dummy in the front seat to make people think he had a girlfriend. That's a fact, Kate. How do you feel about that?
When was this?
Before he was married.
Wow.
But like when he was a teenager or something. Okay, you might think I'm done with killer facts, but I'm not. Alvin had 2 cats that they wanted to say he was torturing because he had them tied to the table. He would just put them on some twine when people entered his place. Nothing wrong there. So he has to take those cats to the vet, which was, again, a bargaining thing. He didn't want to do that at all. And McCracken's like, Alvin, when we get there, you better have names for these cats. Because he just always called them the cats. So they show up to the vet, and Alvin is holding 2 boxes with 2 cats in them. And we find out their names. One is called Meowie, and the other is called Kitty. And Mama named her Kitty. And Alvin goes, and the vet is like, well, when did you get Meowie? And he said 1990. And the vet's like, okay, that makes sense, about a 9-year-old cat. Now it's time for the second box. And the vet says, okay, well, how old's this one? And Alvin goes, Mama got Kitty in 77. And McCracken's like, Alvin, that would make this cat 22 years old. Or 21 years old. There's no way.
No, it's possible.
Yep. Then the old-ass cat comes out of the box, and the vet looks at it and goes, no, that's an old cat. That's a really, really old cat. So again, Alvin's telling the truth.
Wow.
And they show a picture of Mama Ridley in the FF. And what was at her feet? But a cat. So there's the proof right there at the feet.
So not only was he not abusing those cats, he was taking incredibly good care of those cats because that cat lived to be 21 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing he kept repeating was that Mama didn't want him to get pregnant. That's why they were tied up and stuff. Because if they escaped, they'd go out and, potentially get pregnant. Mm-hmm. And so that was the reasoning behind that. And so after McCracken told him that he stunk and felt bad about it, McCracken's back in his office, which we saw his office, him typing there on his old computer and stuff. There was a skunk in the vent that sprayed him directly in the face one night when he was there looking at the case. So skunk got all over him and the papers. Next day in court, Alvin's going, did you have a falling out with a skunk? And McCracken's like, yes, I did. And so the rest of the day, Alvin's going, you smell, dude. You stink. That's pretty good, right? That's good.
It's funny. You ever been sprayed with a skunk?
Almost, but no. Have you?
No.
Yeah. I know there was like a Partridge Family episode. You bathe in tomato juice and whatnot.
Look, I don't want anyone to panic or anything, but there's a skunk sitting right behind me. A what, dear? A skunk, Mother.
Okay, here we go. Almost done. Oh, the cat thing, that was good. 1-800. We already talked about that. So, here we are at the end of the app. At the beginning, I said this sounds like a pretty damn good movie that would be like an Oscar favorite starring Anthony Hopkins, if we're talking like early 2000s. Mm-hmm. How do you feel, Kate? Do you see what I'm talking about here? I mean, this is like
I do.
Right?
There's a lot of quirky small town stuff that makes this feel very indie darling, Oscar baity.
Yeah, I mean, sadly today, I think it would be a Netflix movie and it'd get buried for nothing and nobody would think about it. Mm-hmm. But I feel like there's a time where this would have been like an Aaron Brockovich at the Oscars or something.
I don't know that Anthony Hopkins would be my choice, though.
Yeah, he was the only one I could place to sell the Oscar baitiness of it. Do you have somebody instead?
I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
You got to think early 2000s. Well, or now. He could be now.
No, it would be now.
Yeah. But no 54-year-old looks like that anymore.
No, it would have to be a 70-year-old.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, well, hey, I think it's time for them lists. What you got?
Kate's unnamed list. This is a small town.
Yep.
It's the kind of town where murders don't happen, and they didn't happen this time either.
No, they did not.
The main street has only 3 traffic lights, and most of the town's 750 residents know or do business with each other.
And aside from the van, I don't know if that really counts as a car thing because it wasn't part of the actual case at all. It was just some flavor. I don't think there's anything else on my list.
That's true, but that small town is a good one. I gotta mention, one time, McCracken is out with his new wife, and they're at like the local Christmas parade, where there's all these people, lights are, you walk down Main Street, it's like a parade or whatever, and then he says, and I got a familiar smell in my nose.
Oh no.
And I looked around, and there was a Santa Claus, and he's going, oh no. A real grungy looking Santa Claus handing candy out, and he said when he saw Alvin's hand, he knew it. Alvin had been dressing up as Santa every year and wandering around and like giving kids candy and stuff. And that was Alvin dressed as Santa, okay? And the only thing that gave him up was that when they passed his fucking Zenith color TV store, he stopped and stared at the sign for a long time. And everybody was like, oh my God, that's the guy on trial for murder. That's pretty adorable.
But also a nice man when it comes to kids. He didn't like adults, but he liked kids.
Yeah. I love that he spotted him with the scent. He was like, oh God.
Oh yeah.
I know that BO anywhere. Also, when he was arrested, this is the bias of the town, where he grew up with the current sheriff and cops as kids, and they bullied him. So much so that on the arresting document, like on the intake or whatever, you know how it says alias? Like if you have other names as a criminal, like I'm 8-Ball.
Mm-hmm.
They put Chipmunk, because that's what they called him as a kid, because his name's Alvin.
That's not cool.
No! This is like the sheriff and the cops in town. And one of the times when he was threatened to be arrested was because they were going to arrest him for using foul language. Anyway.
That's not illegal.
No, it certainly is not.
You know what? He's lucky. He's lucky that they didn't just lock him up.
Yeah. And the judge even, he was on, and he was right in saying, like, this is a good example of why you've got to follow the law and, like, not judge people prematurely and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, he's like, this is a good example of the law being a success. And that's because, like, the guy forced himself to be his lawyer and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't have happened otherwise. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for this. Oh, wait, we got to talk about FF in general.
You didn't do your list.
You're right, I didn't. Kurt's Kick-Ass List.
Kick-Ass List.
No, nothing on my list other than we got to give a shout out to Ron Howard mentions.
Everyone feels that way.
And also Unsolved Mysteries. I mean, that's totally on my list. That Virginia had written a spec Unsolved Mysteries script. And the bad guy in it was the name of the guy in the lawsuit, obviously. Like, what was the crime? Nobody does.
There was no crime.
No, there wasn't. But they were fucking obsessed with it. So that is on my list. Absolutely. I think that does it. But yeah, I think that this would be a killer movie. And I'm tempted to reach out to the guy if he's on Reddit and whatnot.
Yeah, do it.
FF in general. We can't talk about FF without talking about Peter Thomas. Tell me about that narrator, Kate. Does he not? He makes the show, I feel. I mean, that's the lifeblood.
For me, that's part of the nostalgia, hearing his voice. Just brings me right back
so good
to childhood.
That's awesome. And I discovered this show on the Cock 2 years ago. I knew it existed and stuff, but I had never watched it. So this is brand new for me. And one of the first things I fell in love with was how immediate and urgent the VO was. And I think Peter Thomas's voice is so good at putting you in that moment, like you're like in the scene watching it. He's great. He's the best, I would say.
Peter Thomas walked so Keith Morrison could run.
Oh, 1,000%. And now that's a great way to end it. I'm Kurt Money.
I'm Caitlin.
I'm Lester Holt.